The views and opinions expressed on Unlock Your Wealth Radio are those of the host, guests, and callers only and are not necessarily the views of Unlock Your Wealth Radio, Heather Wagenhals, or Success Publishing International.
Worried about retirement? Want to travel the world or just be around to watch your kids grow up, but you can't because you're drowning in debt? Now you can! With Heather Wagenhals and the Keys to Riches powered by Unlock Your Wealth Radio. Heather will show you how to stop chasing your wallet, eliminate debt, lose financial stress, and live the life of your dreams. If you truly ever wanted to have more, do more, be and give back more, now's your chance. Listen weekly to hear what others are doing to manage their money better with these proven strategies for building wealth with the Keys to Riches financial philosophy. Now, here's your host, Heather Wagenhals.
Second time's the charm.
Yeah. Is this on?
Hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you for stopping by. This part of Unlock Your Wealth Radio is sponsored by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download at unlockyourwealthradio.com/free book and click on the link to over 150,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. So welcome, everyone, to...
Welcome.
Actually, we're doing a Keys to Riches show, so you should probably go to keys-to-riches.com.
Is that what? Yeah.
I guess I'm not paying attention.
It's so confusing.
It is. Welcome to the Keys to Riches, powered by Unlock Your Wealth Radio. We are so glad to have you. So I am Heather Wagenhals, your purveyor of prosperity, and I am flanked by the maestro of moolah, Michael Terry.
Hey.
And we will help you get your money mind right on today's episode with the following great features. So first off, our investor word of the day has the word gross in it. And so let's talk about what is this week's key.
This week's key is hope for the best and plan for the worst.
Yes, we're on our sixth key in our Keys to Riches financial philosophy. And so holy smokes, we're clipping through. We're at the halfway mark.
Yeah.
This is a great key for this week. I learned quite a few things at Freedom Fest about myself, about others, about behavioral economics. I met some phenomenal people. And every time I gave my presentations, they all had the Three Amigos model of information processing in them in some way, shape, or form.
Cool.
Yeah. So whether it was my my presentation on turning critics into converts at the Freedom Fest, or whether it was my man of reason ideal and becoming a better objectivist, I think is what people have started to coin now, which I was pretty excited about that because, it's amazing when you go from like an idea and then it evolves to a theory and then you get more momentum behind it and then you kind of prove the theory. And then once you prove the theory in the lab, so to speak, then you take it out to see what the public reaction is. Mm-hmm. And so this concept is in my Money, Credit, and You book out in August. And what's amazing is that's kind of like the first big public forum in writing for the Three Amigos. But I've been talking about this information processing model for a while, but it just kind of evolved over the past year or so. Would you say that it kind of fell into place? Mm-hmm. And the more I started using it on the show, and the more feedback I started getting. But there's something even better when you get face-to-face contact with people. Radio is great, but I don't get feedback unless people call in to the show.
Right.
And I couldn't even see. It was so sad. We had a slate of callers for our live show on our sister show for Unlock Your Wealth Radio, but because I couldn't see them even with my glasses because the light was so bright that I wasn't able to take callers with Dr. Wade. But we had so much to talk about anyway. We didn't have time for other people.
Yeah.
But what's great about being able to speak live and to be able to express your thoughts live is you can see people's physiological reactions. They may not be interacting with you. They might not be speaking back, but you can see on their face the aha moment. You can see when they lean forward to learn more. And so it was really amazing to see the power of understanding that happens because after I gave these talks, For days later, people would come up to me and tell me how profoundly this understanding impacted them. And it's really tough sometimes when you talk to a group of intellectuals because you don't know if you're insulting their intelligence because they're so smart.
Yep.
But sometimes, and this was the case that this time, that intellectuals get so intellectual and so into their logic brain that they're unable to make a decision. And that's where instinct and emotion and memory come into play. And that's why it's so important that we don't change the way our brain processes information. Because when we survive, emote, and then think, it's much better. Because if we had to think about every single decision we made,
I know people like that.
you would get paralyzed. You would accomplish nothing.
They get nothing done.
Do I brush my teeth first or do I floss first? Should I comb my hair? And what about my makeup? Should I put my makeup on? Or maybe I'll make a mess when I go to brush my teeth. So maybe I don't want to put my makeup on just yet because the toothpaste, the little dots flick out when it bubbles and the flicking of the brush and all of that stuff. So perhaps I should wait to put on my makeup. But you know what? I just need to hurry up and go. So maybe I should put my makeup on, then brush my teeth, and then go. But then, again, there's these toothpaste flicks. And then what if I get it on the mirror? Now I'm going to have to clean the mirror. And it just goes on and on and on.
Imagine a songwriter like that.
And you just got to, sometimes you just got to let instinct go.
Yeah.
And so while it would be great if it would be, I think, I feel, I do, our brains aren't wired that way. And so that's what we're going to learn on today's show when we talk about this week's key is the process that the three amigos go through and that you go through every time a stimulus in the environment it catches your attention or you generate a thought. Yep. You go through this process each and every time, but your brain may be able to handle the information and the response in the first two brains and not need to escalate it to a logical thought. But that's where habits come into play. And reason is not automatic. The ability to think is not something we do first. And so therefore it is not automatic.
Right.
And that's how we can get into negative habits and bad habits. So that's what we'll talk about on today's show in our Hope for the Best, Plan for the Worst. It'll be really exciting. So first, we need to have our moolah word of the day, shall we?
Yeah, let's have a moolah word.
So our moolah word is gross domestic product. You were close.
Real close.
With national, but gross domestic product. And that you may hear every month, when they give out the reports and the news by the numbers, you hear acronyms. So you get numbers and acronyms, and you're like, what the?
GDP, right?
GDP is the acronym for gross domestic product, and it is the total market value of all final goods and services produced in a country in a given year, equal to total consumer, investment, and government spending, plus the value of exports minus the value of imports. Okay, so the GDP report is released at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the last day of each quarter, and it represents the previous quarter. So growth in GDP is what matters, and the U.S. GDP growth has historically averaged about 2.5% to 3% per year, but with substantial deviations. Each initial GDP report will be revised twice before the final figure is settled upon. The advance report is followed by the preliminary report about a month later and a final report a month after that. So that's why even though it's a quarterly analysis, you still get numbers each and every month as they refine them. So why do they do that? So significant revisions to the advanced number can cause additional ripples through the markets. So people respond as people are trying to predict futures in the economy, like which way is it going to go, up, down, sideways. And so many things affect production and sales. The GDP numbers are reported in two forms, current dollar and constant dollar. So current dollar is calculated using today's dollars and makes comparisons between time periods difficult because of the effects of inflation. of inflation. So constant dollar GDP solves this problem by converting the current information into some standard era dollar, such as $1997. This process factors out the effects of inflation and allows easy comparisons between periods. It is important to differentiate gross domestic product from gross national product. Another gross. GDP includes only goods and services produced within the geographic boundaries of the U.S., regardless of the producer's nationality. So think about Toyota making cars here. All right. So GNP doesn't include goods and services produced by foreign producers, but does include goods and services produced by U.S. firms operating in foreign countries.
Gotcha.
So national has to do with us no matter where we make it. Domestic has to do with anybody making stuff here.
Okay.
So there's the difference. So to use this term in a sentence, the small country knew they would never succeed on the world stage until they significantly increased their gross domestic product, giving them something with which to compete. So
Nice. Yeah.
here's one more. The gross domestic product was higher for the United States of America than it was for Mexico, and we explained why this is. So that was like a quote from somebody's speech. So thank you, investorwords.com.
If I can make a request,
No. No, go ahead.
but I would love you to explain to me and the listeners sometime, and maybe it could be a double moolah word of the day is deficit and versus debt, because those terms are being used so much today.
That would be a good, whole show.
Yeah.
Like, we could do a topic-driven show on that. That would be good.
Because, everybody's saying Obama is the first president to erase the deficit by $1 trillion. But, they're making that like this good thing, but he's racked up a debt that's also the highest of all time. So it'd be nice to understand the two.
So to answer it, because it's going to kill listeners to not know. So the simple answer, I can give you a simple answer. So a deficit is if you think in terms of cash flow. So you have your paychecks coming in and you have your bills going out.
Yeah.
A deficit would mean more bills going out than what's coming in. Okay. And debt is a total dollar or aggregated amount owed. So think of debt as your charge cards.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a difference between your charge card and the fact that you run at a loss every month.
Yeah. But they're both equally bad, right?
Well, no. They're not.
Okay.
But it requires a little bit of an explanation. Yeah. So running at a deficit is bad because that means you're spending more than you're making. And so you either got to reduce the spending or increase the income.
Right.
And I don't know about you, but I don't want my taxes going up.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of smoke and mirrors when it comes to what's going on in the U.S., because supposedly, Clinton balanced the budget, but they never talk about long-term debt because the budget is only on a yearly basis.
Right.
The budget doesn't talk about liabilities at all.
Right.
So if you earn less than you spend, that's bad. But debt, and specifically the appropriate types of debt, can help you build wealth.
Yeah, you gotcha.
So debt is not necessarily bad. If you're financing Ferragamos because you want to look cool walking down the street and you don't pay that credit card off at the end of the month, that type of debt is a problem. But you go and you buy a fourplex and rent out 3 units, that's good debt.
Yeah.
Because it's for the cause. Because you're living, housing payment free in the immediate primary residence concern, and you're generating income. So that's what's beautiful about that, because your living and your lifestyle is subsidized by that investment. And the only way to make that investment is to save up the money or finance part of it. Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of leverage in that sense. Because if you buy the property right at the right price, negotiate properly, and get a great rate on your interest on your mortgage, you should be able to get about 125 to 150% of your mortgage payment in rent. And so if you split that, like, so in the event of a fourplex, and I'm just going to do this for easy math, let's say your mortgage is $1,000 a month. So spread across each unit, that's $250 for each unit, including yours. So for the four. But if you charge $1,500 in rent spread over those four, and you're getting $750, so you've got your sinking fund. So 25% goes to like homeowners association dues and like potential repairs that you might have to make, upgrades, things like that, general wear and tear stuff. Then the other 25% is pure profit. And so now it's going to take a couple of those houses to subsidize your rent to come up with your $250. So if you take your $250 against theirs, you know what I mean? So you subtract $1,000 and you've got $500 a month left over, and you put $250 away for, sinking funds, for repairs and stuff like that. Now you got $250 to party away with or save for another investment.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. So,
Yeah.
it makes sense to borrow $1,000 or to borrow and have a $1,000 payment if you can make $1,500 on it.
Sure.
That's a smart business
That's good
decision.
debt. Yeah.
So that's good debt.
Yeah.
So debt is not inherently bad. It all depends on what you're financing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if you want fancy sneaks and kicks, and you can't afford them at the end of the month when your paycheck comes in, then you probably shouldn't be buying them.
Yeah.
And that's that. So there's a short answer.
Yeah.
Sound good?
Thank you for that.
So this segment of The Keys to Riches, powered by Unlock Your Wealth Radio, is sponsored in part by KeepMyID.org, the only service that actually prevents identity theft. All others are just monitoring services. Put your credit on lockdown for Keys to Riches radio listeners by visiting our website at keys-to-riches.com/keepmyid and click on the link to start protecting your future right now. Remember to use the promo code WAGS. So it's time for our key, shall we? For our sixth key.
Let's do it.
In the Keys to Riches. And the Keys to Riches is a baker's dozen of financial concepts that teach you how to think like the rich and be in control of your own money. It also gives you specific techniques to create or fix your credit, eliminate debt. It's so great. Eliminate debt, save and invest, all while transforming your current financial habits into healthy money management skills. And we do this Keys to Riches financial philosophy, one key at a time, 1 week at a time. We are now at key 6, which is hope for the best, plan for the worst. So we talked about knowledge is power, not knowing is powerful, and understanding how we make decisions. And now we're at hope for the best, plan for the worst. And the reason why this key is so critical for us, so we have to focus on our plan A. And so essentially, hope for the best, plan for the worst is all about understanding plan A and plan B. So plan A is what we would like to have happen. And we did that when we did Dreams with Deadlines, okay? And that was setting our goals and coming up with our strategies. And then we learned about our 3-5 financial plan or a financial strategy where we asked 3 questions, address 5 areas of concern. This key is a critical piece of the puzzle because just like break the budget gets you out of that lack mentality, this actually works with the way your brain works also, in the sense that it's good to have a plan A. We must have a plan A. And this mindset of people that I don't make plan Bs because failure is not an option has not experienced enough catastrophe or derailments to understand that plan B isn't about failing at plan A. It's about ensuring plan A's success. And here's why, because it has to do with the way the brain is. So if we talk about the theory of mind and we talk about how the brain is set up. So icebergs. Think about icebergs and islands. Those are good representations of the brain. So the part that you see above the water is usually about 12% or so of the mass of the island. Okay? That's like the mountains and all the stuff that's popping up.
Yep.
And the beach that you see. So the other 88% of the island is underwater. So that includes like the sandbar, which is kind of like sort of lightly at the top, and then you have this big drop off, and then you just get this massive abyss. So if we think in terms of an island, our minds are like islands. And so 12% of our conscious mind is that part that's above ground. And it's specific, focused, targeted, and you can manage about 7 to 9 pieces of information at any given time, plus or minus 2. So that's interesting why phone numbers have 7 digits.
Oh, yeah.
So it makes it easier to remember because you're right at that capacity. Because, like, how many times, remember, like if you were in a city that all of a sudden population dictated adding area codes, like Arizona was always 602 for like my whole life.
Yeah.
Until like the 90s or whatever. And then they added 480 and 623.
Now there's another one, right? The Tucson area code is 520.
Well, yeah, but you could call anybody in Arizona under the 602.
Really? 602? Did
602 was all of Arizona. So 520, and we also have Flagstaff, which is 928.
928, yeah.
And this
Connecticut was the same.
This
way.
telephone directory is brought to you by KeysToRiches.com.
Yeah, really. Geography lesson.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so sometimes you could remember the area code, but it was always like a struggle. Sometimes you'd remember the area code and the phone number, and sometimes you'd get halfway through and you're like, oh my gosh, I remember the area code and the first part of the phone number. I remember the prefix, but I can't remember the last 4.
Yeah.
So depending on how much you got going on is, it's kind of just this little interesting phenomenon. So anyway, plus or minus 7 to 9 things, plus or minus 2. However, the subconscious means outside of your conscious awareness is 88% of the brain. And in here, you can manage 4 billion bits. Like billion is in boy, that's a big number. Bits of information.
Yeah.
A second. And as Arnold would say, heal me now, believe me later. Remember the guys, Hans and Franz, that would make fun of it?
Yeah.
So, heal me now, believe me later. that you are not consciously aware of until I say this to you, where your feet are placed on the floor right now, or if they are even on the floor. You won't notice that unless your legs are crossed, and after some time of having the circulation disrupted, that you'll start feeling some tingling in your foot.
Right.
You are not consciously thinking, my heart rate is beating at 62 beats per minute. Or my heart rate just escalated to 100 beats per minute. You're not thinking those things.
Right.
So, but not consciously, but your subconscious is. So here's what happens with the brain and why this key is so important. Because of the term worry. So one of my favorite movies is Spanish Prisoner. It's from the 90s. It was an independent film.
Viggo, right?
Viggo
Mortensen, was he in that?
Was he?
Spanish Prisoner.
Spanish Prisoner. I don't know that I mean I know who that is, but like it was David Mamet thriller is what it was. Steve Martin played the bad guy.
Steve Martin was in it, huh?
Yes. It's an amazing movie. And there's this attorney guy that always had these amazing quotes at just the right time. He was just the fountain of quotes. Are you Googling the picture?
Yeah.
Yes. So, Steve Martin plays the bad guy. So
Campbell Scott.
there you go. Campbell Scott. That's who it was. You threw me by Viggo.
George's son, you know that?
Really?
It's George C. Scott's kid, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
He's amazing. He's an incredible
Unbelievable filmmaker. He did a film called Off the Map.
Off the Map.
You need to see that film.
Okay.
Coolest film.
We'll do Off the Map.
Yeah.
So worry, this attorney had this quote, worry is interest paid on a note that never comes due. And if we think about the hierarchy of fears and what we're afraid of, our biggest fear is not just failure or death or embarrassment. Those are some of the fears on the hierarchy of fears chart. But what we mostly fear is the fear of the unknown. And so how do we get around that? Because that's what creates worry. So how do we get around that? So in order to get around that fear of the unknown, we have to make the unknowns known. So that's what this key is all about, is creating a plan B and having alternative scenarios. So if the play changes, think about football, and you have special teams and you have separate plays. Mm-hmm. You know, you have your standard ones that you run all the time. drive, we're going to drive down and hopefully we'll score a touchdown. But if we don't score a touchdown in this one play, if something happens, somebody makes a mistake, we have other plays that we can run in case they're anticipating that.
Right.
And so instead of worrying about what could happen or what might happen, why don't we just have special plays already pre-programmed that if this particular scenario arises for us, it doesn't have to derail us financially. Because that's what happened, and that's why people don't get back up on the wagon or back up on the horse or in the saddle or whatever kind of adage works with you. And is because they get discouraged because they put everything into their plan A and they didn't think about plan B. And when we're caught up and our three amigos get confused, and we got to remember that it is I do, I feel, I think. Not I think, I feel, I do.
Yeah.
That's how we believe we want it to be, but it's not how it is. And so what we have to do is we have to create responses to scenarios that may beset us and program them in. Have that already planned out and addressed. So now it's not an unknown, it's a known. And if and when it happens, then it's already addressed. And I remember going over this concept with my editor when I was trying to explain to him what the purpose of this key was, because he wasn't getting it. And so I said, okay, so let me take just a catastrophic particular scenario. Let's say, all of a sudden, I said, do you have in-laws? And yes, I have a mother-in-law. And I said, great. And is she your favorite person? And he's like, no, not so much. And so then I said, okay, but if something happens and she can't live on her own anymore, she's moving in with you, right? And he looked at me and he's like, are you nuts? And I said, you've already discussed this with your wife and you've already created the scenario, right? And he's like, no. And I said, so does your wife know that her mother isn't welcome in your house? And he's like, I don't know. And I said, so if she's in an emotional state, all riled up because now something's happened to her mom, and you come up with this little scenario about, no, absolutely not, she's not living here, you think that's going to go over well? Or probably like a lead balloon? And he just kind of looked at me and he's like, okay, I get it. So what we're going to do here with this key, and the point of this key, is that we're going to take every potential financial catastrophe that could happen, death of an income-producing spouse, incapacitation of an income-producing spouse, which is, almost worse for you financially, because now you still have to take care of that person and they're a liability. Maybe you have special needs child, care of an indigent parent, loss of a job. You have to address all of these categories and create your plan while you're not emotionally engaged in it, because once those three amigos get cooking, they're going to pull the emergency line, and that elevator is not going to get up to logically or to make a conscious, reasoned thought about it. So you have to make those decisions beforehand. And the only way to do that is when you're not engaged in this scenario and you anticipate and discuss. If you have a significant other, you need to discuss how you would handle those situations. What if we have an unplanned pregnancy? What if this? What if that? And hash it out now so it's off your plate, because if you have less worry on the 88%, then that 88% can be supportive of what you are focusing on consciously in your 12%. And I would rather have 100% congruence and my brain working for the team for plan A than wasting 88% of my brain power on something that may or may not happen now or in the future. But because I don't explore it and I don't create a resolution for it, or a special teams or a last-ditch kind of play that I can practice and rehearse. So when it's right there and I'm at the 1 yard line and I need to have something and they're anticipating everything else, I've got to be able to have another play that I can pull out of my playbook and execute as if I've practiced it all the time. And so that's why we do this key. So that's a critical piece for the puzzle. So if you'd like more information on the Keys to Riches financial philosophy, or to sign up for our free video course where you can learn all of the keys, please visit our website at keystoriches.com. For the maestro of moolah, Michael Terry, I'm Heather Wagenhals. Now go out and unlock your wealth today.
UnlockYourWealthRadio.com is produced by Heather Wagenhals and the Unlock Your Wealth Foundation. UnlockYourWealthRadio.com and its affiliates are copyrighted 2016 with all rights reserved. For more information on the Keys to Riches Financial Wellness Series, please visit our website at www.unlockyourwealth.com.